That's Mommy. It happened on the night we visited my husband's family home. As I was reading a picture book to her, my 5-year-old niece suddenly pointed at a picture. It was a terrifying image. Could it be? I rushed up to the attic, and there I found my sister-in-law in a terribly changed state. She showed no signs of breathing, and I began to shake uncontrollably with fear. Surely my niece had been trying to tell me about this somehow. It was absolutely unforgivable. While suppressing my rising anger, I set out on a path of revenge. I married Charles, who's the same age as me, 2 years ago. He's a wonderful man who takes the initiative with housework in place of me, since my work is busy and irregular. I want to support you as you work for those in need, he'd say. I was so grateful to him. Because we lead such busy lives, we don't have children yet. We both love kids, so we often said, it would be nice if we could have one soon, but the timing never seemed right. Let's take it slow, he'd say. Yes, but I still find myself wanting a cute little girl like Emma. I feel the same way. Emma is Charles's brother's daughter, our adorable 5-year-old niece. Charles's brother Damien had taken over the family farming business and lived with his wife Carrie, daughter Emma, and Damien's parents, a family of 5. Their house was in a rural town far from ours, so we couldn't visit often. We'd stay for a few days, maybe once a year. The in-laws seemed busy coordinating produce from neighboring farms, so that frequency seemed about right. Damien and his wife were easygoing, and my in-laws were kind, so I always looked forward to our visits. More than anything, our niece eagerly anticipated our visits. Carrie, my sister-in-law, was close to my age, and we got along well. As an only child, she was like a real sister to me, someone I could talk to about anything. We kept in constant contact. Look! Carrie sent another picture of Emma. She's so cute. Really? Forward it to me too. We always had exchanges like this. Needless to say, when a video call came in, my husband and I would fight over the phone. However, at some point, Carrie stopped responding to my messages. I became worried that something might have happened to her. When Charles came home from work, I rushed to him. Carrie's not replying to my messages. Do you think something's wrong? Maybe she's just busy. It's harvest time for the crops. I hope that's all it is, but this has never happened before. I can't help but worry. At first, my husband didn't think much of it, but seeing my concerned face, he immediately called Damien. It turned out that Carrie was bedridden with illness. Worried, I told my husband I wanted to speak directly with Damien and asked him to pass the phone. Is Carrie all right? What are her symptoms? In my concern for her, I fired off questions one after another. Damien sighed heavily on the other end of the line. Hey, don't you think it's a bit much to pry into other people's family matters? Please don't worry about it too much. He ended the call abruptly without answering my questions. What's gotten into Damien? I was surprised by his brusque attitude, so unlike his usual easygoing self. However, I also realized I might have been wrong to ask such probing questions. Still, I couldn't get Carrie out of my mind and thought about visiting them, but my work schedule was full, so I couldn't go in the end. I hoped I'd be able to see her looking well when we visited next. Several weeks passed, and I visited Charles's family home with him. We hadn't heard from Carrie since then, and we were worried that her condition might be quite serious. "Brother, where's Carrie? She's not here right now." As we wondered what that meant, Charles's mother informed us that Carrie was in the hospital. We were both stunned by this news, which confirmed our fears. "I'd like to visit Carrie in the hospital." "Well, you see, they're not allowing visitors other than immediate family." I almost asked if her condition was really that bad, but I felt it might be inappropriate to say that, so I swallowed my words. Another concern was our niece, Emma. Usually full of energy, she was unusually quiet. Thinking she must be anxious without her mother around, I hoped we could do some fun things together to cheer her up during our stay. Just then, as my husband and I were putting our luggage in our room, Emma came running up to us quietly. What is it? Do you want to talk about something?" Emma had come close to me but was fidgeting for some reason. She must be nervous after not seeing us for a while. However, she was looking at me intently as if she wanted to say something. Just as she was about to open her mouth, Damien came hurrying over. "Emma, Miranda and Charles are tired, so go play over there." "We're fine, really," I replied, but Damien said, "No, we're intruding," and forcibly took Emma away. Even though we're family, I didn't want them to be so considerate, but maybe this was Damien's way of being kind. However, this same interaction kept repeating, and I couldn't even have a proper conversation with Emma. Not only Damien, but the grandparents were also acting fidgety, clearly different from their usual selves. They usually say, "Stay as long as you like," but this time they were saying things like, "When are you going home?" or "Don't you have work to do?" It was as if they didn't want us in the house. Something feels off. This is strange. I started to feel uncomfortable and became suspicious of their behavior. My husband felt the same way, tilting his head and saying, "Something's different from usual, isn't it?" Then, as we were relaxing after dinner, Emma came to me again. "I want to sleep with you." However, once again, Damien came chasing after her and picked her up to take her away. "Didn't I tell you not to bother them?" "No. I'll go right to sleep after she reads me a story. Please." I approached Emma, who looked like she was about to cry in Damien's arms. "Damien, you don't need to worry about us." "Emma, it's okay. Let's go to your room. Which storybook do you want to read?" Damien didn't seem entirely convinced, but when I said, "It'll just be for a little while," he replied, "I see," and agreed. Emma's face brightened, and she pulled my hand, guiding me to her room. "I want this book. Read it." As I was reading the picture book Emma had handed me, she suddenly pointed to a picture. "This is Mommy." It was a beautiful princess, and I felt touched thinking that's how she saw Carrie. "Your mommy is beautiful, isn't she?" "That's not what I mean." She seemed like she wanted to say something more, but then fell silent, so I couldn't quite understand what she meant. After finishing the book, as I was tucking Emma in, she sadly whispered, "I want to see Mommy," and then fell asleep. When I returned to the living room where everyone was, Damien and his mother were waiting for me as if they had been anticipating my return. They made me sit down. "Did Emma say anything?" "No, nothing in particular. She fell asleep right after I read her the story." When I said this, Damien seemed to show a relieved expression. After that, his mother whispered something to Damien, then looked at me and smiled, saying, "Thank you. Well, now that Emma's asleep, let's have some adult time." My husband, Damien, and the grandparents started drinking, and it turned into a party atmosphere. By the time night had fallen deeply, they had all fallen into a deep sleep. I went to Emma's room to check on her, and she was sound asleep. As I gazed at her with a warm feeling, I couldn't help but think about her behavior before she went to sleep. I picked up the picture book we had read earlier and flipped through the pages. When I came across the picture she had pointed to, I realized its horrifying nature. Could it be? No, it couldn't be. But I have to make sure. Before I knew it, my body was moving faster than my thoughts, and I found myself running up the stairs leading to the attic. When I opened the door, the sight that greeted me left me speechless. There, lying in a terribly emaciated state, was Carrie, the very person we had been told was in the hospital. "Carrie!" I rushed to her and shook her body while calling out to her, but there was no response at all. What should I do? Seeing Carrie's condition, where I couldn't even tell if she was breathing, I was severely shaken, but I quickly woke up my sleeping husband. At first, Charles was quite shocked, but he helped me carry Carrie to the car and drive her to the hospital without alerting Damien or his parents. However, when we arrived at the hospital, I overheard the doctor mutter, "I hope we can save her." And I couldn't stop shaking with anger and sadness. There's no doubt that Damien and his parents were involved in Carrie ending up like this. It also explained why they had been so fidgety since we arrived. After consulting with my husband, I decided to start gathering evidence so they couldn't deny their actions. The next morning, while we were eating breakfast, Charles suggested to everyone, "I'd like to take Emma to the new shopping mall. Why don't you all come along?" But apart from Emma, the response was lukewarm. The grandmother and Damien seemed to be exchanging glances, as if signaling each other with their eyes. "We're fine, you and Miranda can take Emma." "Yes, please do." In the end, neither Damien nor the grandparents were keen on going. However, my husband insisted, "It doesn't make sense unless the whole family goes out together," and they reluctantly agreed to come along. As everyone was getting into the car, I took out my smartphone from my pocket. "Sorry, I got a work call. Please go ahead without me. I'll catch up later." Ignoring their surprised looks, my husband stuck his face out the window and said, "Got it." He locked the car doors and slowly drove off. Damien and his parents seemed to think it was a bad idea to leave me alone in the house, and I could see them frantically trying to tell Charles something in the car. They were probably saying, "Come back right now." However, my husband drove on with a straight face, completely ignoring them, and the car quickly disappeared from sight. Grateful to Charles, I began searching the house to punish them. One unbelievable thing after another came to light, and I trembled with anger. I can't forgive this. I decided to take action for Carrie's sake. In the evening, my husband returned with the family. Emma seemed to have fallen asleep from exhaustion and was being carried by my husband. I'll put Emma to bed. I'm also tired from driving, so I'll rest a bit. Saying this, Charles went into Emma's room. As I was watching him go, my mother-in-law came up to me. Miranda, why didn't you come? We were waiting for you the whole time. I'm sorry. A big job came up unexpectedly. Oh my, that must have been tough. By the way, did anything unusual happen? Were you in the living room the whole time? She kept asking me where I had been and what I had been doing while I was alone in the house. Meanwhile, Damien went up to the attic. Then, with loud footsteps, he came running back to his parents in a great hurry. This is bad. We can't talk here. Let's go over there. Seeing Damien's face and realizing something was seriously wrong, his parents took him to a place away from me. Then they began whispering in low voices, occasionally glancing in my direction. Wondering what was going on, I rushed over to them. Is something wrong? Miranda, you didn't go to the attic, did you? My mother-in-law asked quietly with a furrowed brow, so I looked straight at her. Not today, no. Oh, but I did yesterday. Was that not allowed? I deliberately said it in a provocative way. This seemed to strike a nerve with them, and they raised their voices, completely changing their attitude. What the hell do you think you're doing? Where did you take Carrie? She was locked up there, but now she's gone. You helped her escape, didn't you? Damien approached me, shouting in rage. That's right. Tell us where she is right now. Their stern expressions as they berated me clearly showed how panicked they were. To leave her in such a miserable state. I took her to the hospital, but it might have been too late. As I choked up with frustration, in stark contrast, Damien smirked and said in a low voice, "So she's finally gone to the other world, huh? What on earth were you thinking? That's none of your business." Right, Mom? That's right. Miranda, what are you talking about? Carrie's been in the hospital all along, hasn't she? They were now trying to play innocent, as if our previous exchange had never happened. I sighed and then glared at them without backing down an inch. What do you make of this? I thrust a photo in front of them. It was a picture of Carrie lying down, chained up with heavy shackles. Seeing the photo, Damien and his parents didn't answer, just averting their eyes. It was you who did such a horrible thing to her, wasn't it? When I pressed them, Damien heaved a big sigh and scratched his head vigorously. Don't misunderstand. She went to the attic on her own. Damien made this ridiculous excuse with a straight face, and his parents nodded vigorously. I couldn't help but smile wryly. Did they really think I would believe such words? Thinking that continuing this conversation wouldn't lead anywhere, I decided to play my next hand. This is the reason, isn't it? I slid a document across the table, and Damien hurriedly picked it up, his eyes widening. How did you get this? We couldn't find it anywhere. It was a document showing some financial transactions, with Carrie's handwriting asking, "The flow is strange. Where did this difference go?" I had found this hidden in Emma's bookshelf while searching the house while my husband had taken them out. Let me rephrase the question. This is evidence of your fraud, isn't it? When I pressed him again, Damien crumpled up the document and took it to the kitchen. Then he set it on fire and burned it. Too bad. Look, now there's nothing left. He waved his hands at me mockingly. After that, he came back, put his elbows on the table, and looked at me with a face that seemed to say, "I've got you now." It's Carrie's fault for finding out what we were hiding. Feeling relieved now that the evidence was gone, Damien started talking freely. It turned out that the in-laws, who coordinated with nearby farms, were buying produce cheaply but actually selling it to retailers at much higher prices. They were pocketing the difference as their own profit. Carrie must have noticed this and confronted Damien about what was going on. Carrie has a strong sense of justice. Once she knew, she couldn't just leave it alone, could she? That's right. I told her to keep quiet, but she wouldn't listen and said she was going to tell the other farmers. Even so, to lock her up in the attic to silence her. I was shocked by their excessive actions and way of thinking. As I listened silently for a while, they kept bad-mouthing Carrie one-sidedly and asserting that they were in the right. I was dumbfounded watching them. My mother-in-law, who was standing next to me, quietly gave Damien a meaningful look. But it doesn't feel good to have the house searched, you know. That's right. City girls have no manners. Now that you know, you're going to the attic too. Saying this, Damien suddenly lunged at me. Just then, the living room door opened, and Charles rushed to my side. Don't interfere. This is to protect our home. You were born and raised here too, so you should understand, right? Damien tried to forcibly do something to me, while Charles desperately tried to protect me. Charles grabbed Damien by the collar and shouted, "That's enough." Actually, I had already sent a message to my husband detailing everything I had discovered. That's why I had asked him to pretend to be resting after returning from shopping until the three of them revealed their true nature. It's too late now. I've already started preparing to sue you. With my words, Damien, who had been grappling with Charles, suddenly loosened his grip. The document from earlier was a copy, and I've safely stored the original. I've also saved it as data, so whatever you do is pointless. You're too clever for your own good. I don't want to hear that from you. Oh, take a look at these two. I held out several different photos in front of him. They showed Damien and his parents indulging in luxury at high-end restaurants and inns. What's this? These are just photos of family meals and trips, aren't they? Well, that's how it might look if you only saw these. But what if we add this? I thrust another paper right under Damien's nose. A receipt. That's right. This is a problem, isn't it? Surprisingly, the description on the receipt said, entertainment expenses, and it was addressed to an agricultural corporation that they had formed with the neighboring farms. It seems Carrie found this too. This is what you'd call embezzlement, right? Damien bit his lip and slammed his fist on the table. To think he had such a hidden side. I was shocked, and thinking about how Charles must feel, an indescribable frustration welled up inside me. I informed them that I had already told the corporation members about this and that we would set up a formal meeting to discuss it later. Since I've been asked to handle this, of course I'll be in charge. You don't stand a chance. I smirked and pulled a badge out of my pocket, holding it up in front of them. You see, I'm actually a lawyer. Of course, my in-laws knew that this was my job. Perhaps that's why they took the extreme action of locking Carrie in the attic, worried that she might tell me. Please, don't do this. We're family, aren't we? That's right. Let's continue to build a good relationship. Even my father-in-law was pleading with me, but I couldn't overlook their wrongdoing, so I absolutely refused to nod. Frustrated with my stance, they asked how I had known to go to the attic. Emma told me. That brat. I told her so sternly not to tell anyone. She didn't say anything directly. She just gave me a hint. Huh? What nonsense are you talking about? The family must have threatened Emma, telling her, if you tell anyone, you'll never see Mommy again. Emma had kept her promise. But she wanted to somehow help her mom. So after thinking hard, she tried to let me know using the picture book. The picture she pointed to was of a princess captured by a devil and locked in an attic. I was amazed at how clever she was, even at just 5 years old. When I explained this, they fell silent. I then played a video on my smartphone for them to see. It showed Carrie in a hospital bed, testifying about what had happened. Huh? Why? Didn't she die? They were so surprised their mouths hung open. The truth is, when we took her to the hospital, although she was in terrible condition, she regained consciousness thanks to the doctor's dedicated treatment. There, I heard the whole story from the beginning, and Carrie also expressed her desire to punish Damien and his parents. We didn't give her any food, so how? She's too stubborn. The mother-in-law and father-in-law also looked puzzled. Actually, Emma played a big part in this too. That damn kid again. It turns out that Emma had been secretly going to her mother when the family wasn't looking, giving her water and food. What a kind and clever child, so devoted to her mother. I had no idea. They were surprised and lost for words. There's more to the video, please watch. As I played the rest of the video, Carrie firmly stated her intention to divorce Damien and file a complaint about this incident. You're a lawyer, can't you work something out? We're family, help us out. That's right. Please try to persuade Carrie too. Their pleas were pitiful. My husband, watching this, had a pained expression on his face. I'll be handling this case as well, so be prepared. When I coldly rejected them, they muttered, "No way," and hung their heads on the spot. After that, the in-laws were formally sued by the neighboring farms. They settled by paying each household a lump sum for the difference in sales up to that point. Carrie filed a complaint with the police about the terrible treatment she received, and Damien and his parents were questioned and had to face the consequences of their actions. Carrie demanded $50,000 in damages and medical expenses from them and divorced Damien. Needless to say, she got custody of Emma and demanded an additional $80,000 in child support. Damien and his parents had to sell their house and land to pay for all this, and having lost everything, they came crying to us. "We're cutting ties. We'll never have anything to do with you again." My husband coldly rejected them. They trudged away, and we don't know what became of them after that. Carrie and Emma seem to be living happily back at Carrie's parents' home. We still keep in touch with them, and we're always cheered up by cute little Emma. When the baby in your tummy is born, please play with them. As it turns out, I found out I was pregnant after all this happened, and Emma is looking forward to the baby's birth too. I plan to work right up until just before the delivery. As a lawyer who can help people in trouble, I want to keep doing my best.